In this video, we will start talking about types of unemployment. We will discuss 4 types of unemployment. For each type, we will start with a hypothetical example. Now, here is the very first one. Tom was laid off from his construction job, but Tom is laid off every winter because of the snow. So for these type of unemployment, it's so-called seasonal. Okay? Seasonal unemployment is caused by seasonal weather patterns. For example, when we go to the beach in Florida, especially during the winter times, you would find that some restaurants are completely shut down simply because there's no enough tourists on the beach. So this could be another example of seasonal unemployment. Or you see, for example, in West Virginia, some of these ski resorts would be closed during the summer, and people working there become seasonal unemployed. Okay. The second example here is Mary does not like Iowa and have decided to quit her job as a medical technician and move to Alabama. In this example, we find that Mary is temporarily unemployed because of her personal preference. Okay, she doesn't like Iowa and decided to move to Alabama, right? This is so-called frictional unemployment. It arises because it takes time for workers to search for jobs that best suit their tastes and skills, right? The only thing I want to explain here is frictional. Where we get that word? We actually borrowed it from physics. Okay? In physics, when we talk about frictions, we always said that there would be resistance between the two surfaces. Okay? Especially when they rub against each other. Now, what are the two surfaces here? So that we see frictional unemployment. One surface is labor supply, the workers, the employees. Okay? Again, sometimes they are going to be between the jobs because they want to find a better job, right? Or the job that better suit their tastes. The other surface is labor demand, employers or the firms. They are on the market trying to find the best candidates for their positions. Okay, so when these two sides or the two surfaces rub against each other, that's how we find frictional unemployment. The third example here is Chris, who was fired for his job because the steel company decides to move to Mexico. Okay? And for this type of unemployment, it's called structural. Okay? Structural unemployment arises when the change in technology or the international competition change the skills needed to perform the jobs or change the location of jobs. Okay? Now, the examples could be in 1990s, we see the massive use of computers in workplace, but some workers, their knowledge or skills were outdated. They could not work on computers, so they were unemployed. Okay, or as we already find in this example, Chris was unemployed because of the international competition. Okay, oftentimes we see outsourcing. Okay, we do a lot of outsourcing, so many American manufacturer workers lost their jobs. Okay, so there are two possible causes for the structural unemployment. Okay, changing technology or changing the international competition. Okay? Again, let's look at the title here, structural. What kind of structure we are referring to? Here, we're not talking about the structure of the company. Instead, we are talking about the structure of our economy. Okay? We're saying that some people would be unemployed because our economic structure evolves. For example, back in 19th century, many people in this country lived in countryside, producing wheat, corn, meat. In the 20th century, especially between 1930s and 1970s, we find that we start producing a lot of manufacturing goods, okay, for domestic market and for the rest of the world. Okay. After 1990s, our economy focuses more upon the high-tech products. Okay. And we also produce a lot of services, such as financial and legal services. In other words, our economy is ever changing. Okay? And during this evolution, some people would find their knowledge and skills are outdated. And so they are falling behind and become unemployed. Okay? That's why this is called structural. The last example, Peter was laid off during the financial crisis and was rehired by his company in 2011. Now, in this case, you would find that Peter was unemployed not really because of his incompetency or something wrong about his company. It's just the economy suffered from the financial crisis. Okay, so economy-wide, the market demand is probably down during that crisis. Now, this is so-called cyclical unemployment because it fluctuates along with the business cycle. So when the economy does better, the cyclical unemployment would fall. When the economy does worse, the cyclical unemployment would pick up. Okay? So here we have four types of unemployment. Okay? And now I would suggest you to pause the video and think about among these four types, which ones are more important for a macroeconomist. Okay? Which one matters more for a macroeconomist? For macroeconomists, when we look at the national economy, we would say that the structural unemployment and cyclical unemployment are more important. Okay? Seasonal unemployment, it depends upon the season, right? Or the weather. So there's basically nothing we could do as a macroeconomist. Frictional unemployment, you would find a group of economists, especially labor economists, are super interested in this. Okay? How people or why people are moving between jobs. Okay? And what are their tastes or preferences or their skills, okay, on the labor market. So this is important for labor economists. But for us, as a macroeconomist, we care more about structural unemployment and cyclical unemployment. More specifically, when we look at the long-term change of the economy, we focus more upon the structural unemployment. When we care about the short-term business cycle, we would pay more attention to cyclical unemployment. All right, in the next video, we're going to start talking about structural unemployment, okay, or what causes structural and cyclical unemployment.